All right, students, so I wanted to talk to you about what we would be doing today, or what we did do in class today if you were absent. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to get on your haiku and you need to download this document that is called Shakespeare THINGLINK Plan Sheet and Score Guide. So if you're looking on your haiku, it looks like this. Scroll down for this week, down to Wednesday. And then this is what we're doing. We're doing the THINGLINK app assignment. The Shakespeare THINGLINK plan sheet is at the bottom with everything else, where you always get things downloaded from. So that's the one that you need to put in Notability. So you also need to, once you've done that, you need to go to your email and you are looking for an email that has all of these pictures. If you didn't receive it or if it's not pulling up, they're also here. So you need to put these pictures that you see here or in your email into your camera roll or your photo roll on your iPad. So 1, Shakespeare THINGLINK downloaded into Notability. 2, photos from either here or the email into your camera roll. And then the third thing is you need to find this THINGLINK app on the App Store. So if you look up THINGLINK, it is free. I'm going to go ahead and pause here and have you pause this film or this video until you have done all 3 of those tasks. Put this in Notability, got these in your camera roll, and got the THINGLINK app downloaded from the App Store. Once you finish that, you can unpause and continue. So assuming that you have finished that at this point now, let me explain kind of what was happening today. So we have spent the last couple of days in class working on learning about Shakespeare's own life. We watched a video on Shakespeare's life, which is also on the haiku, and we did a worksheet and activity and discussion on that. We also talked about theater at that time. We talked about the Globe Theater. We talked a little bit about Elizabethan theater and what theater was like at that time. That could be anything about a specific theater or things about acting, which you might know about who was allowed to act on stage, for example. We also learned about daily life at that time, which is what we did yesterday. We did the then versus now activities about what things were like at that time, and you even drew pictures, and we did an activity called Quiz Trade in class. So we've learned about these 3 categories, and what you're going to be showing me in the next couple of days, which is on this THINGLINK assignment, is you're going to be showing me that you know quite a bit, or at least 12 pieces of information, 4 from this category, 4 from this category, and 4 from this category, about Shakespearean times before we begin our unit on the play A Midsummer Night's Dream. So you need to be thinking about what you know and using the resources. Now, you were saying to me, well, okay, if I put these facts here, how am I going to show you that? Well, what you're going to be doing is you're not just going to fill out this plan sheet right here. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating something called a THINGLINK, which is what I was talking about earlier, where you had to download the app. A THINGLINK is a place where you can make links on a page. So I've made a silly example in class. This example, as you can see, has dots all over it. And you can actually find that link by clicking on Wednesday, see Miss Yates' example here. That's on your haiku. So I'm going to show you this silly and terrible picture of me where we have all of these pieces of information. Now, you should be able to pause and go find this and click on it yourself, and I'm going to give you a second to do that. So go ahead and pause this video to make sure that you get this link, open it, and play around with this so you can see what it's about right now. So if you are continuing playing this, I'm going to assume that you have seen all of these in here. So let's just talk about some of these things. There's a variety of different pieces of information. All of these pieces of information in here are what we call captions. So you're allowed to put information or captions into some of these. Now, mine are, of course, quite silly, as you've read, okay? These are not really important about Shakespeare's life, but they're just to show you how you can get information. You also might have noticed that these are in different colors, the yellows, the red, the blue, and then there are 2 blacks, okay? So those colors are significant to something. If you look on this document, the Shakespeare's own life are going to be in yellow, but they're also going to be labeled with an S like this. You can also write the name Shakespeare or just an S to abbreviate. The reds, which are about theater at that time, are going to be with the red bullets. And the daily life, things that are happening in society, maybe what people were allowed to do, what they were not allowed to do, what people ate, what people dressed like. All of those pieces of information that we learned about society are going to be blue. So if you're looking at yours, or my example on your computer, you'll notice that I also labeled. So if you'll notice at the very top of mine, I have labeled not just an S, but I've also written the name Shakespeare. That's the category. It's also yellow, which is the category that you see on here we were just talking about. This one is labeled Daily Life or DL. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you do just the abbreviation or if you write the whole thing out. What matters to me is that it is labeled and appropriately color-coded. And that should matter to you because, one, that tells me that you understand. In case you've made a mistake, I can double check either by color or by your label. And two, if you look on the score guide, which is above it here, it tells you need 4 pieces about Shakespeare's life, yellow, 4 pieces about theater at that time, red, and 4 pieces about daily life, which are blue. We're going to ignore this black one for a minute. We're going to skip down to where it says organization, labeling is correct. So you do receive some points for, do you have the correct information, and do you have the correct color coding, and do you have the correct labeling? Because you can have all the information that's important on there, but if nobody can understand where it goes or what categories it goes in, or I don't know that you know it goes in a certain category, you haven't done this particular part of your score guide. Notice that it also asks you about to look at conventions, including your spelling, capitalization, spacing, punctuation, grammar, etc., to make sure that you have checked all of that so you don't have fragments, you don't have run-ons and comma splices. So I'm going to go back to this set of requirements here. You're going to have 4, 4, and 4. That means you're going to have 12 pieces of information, which you can already see. On this part, okay? 4, 4, 4. That's 12. But it does not include what I'm calling a wild card, which you're labeling black. And that means that you can have any fact you want. It's not regulated to any of these categories. You could repeat one of these categories, but it has to be something about Shakespeare. What's important for this one is that it is labeled black. And that is because you are going to be putting on there links of information or images. And those pieces of information are going to be, I'm going to pause right here. Espérame, porfa. Ya, después porque estoy grabando. Gracias. Those pieces of information are going to be using technology to show us either more of a link or more of an image. So let's go back and look at my example here. This example is a silly one about skin, but I wanted to show you that it has an image that's attached to it. And this is an image with a link. This has a silly link to a store. Now you're not going to be using a silly link to a store or an image of skin. But what we're doing here is showing that you can do these kinds of things. So basically you would have no real label here because it's not necessarily, you don't have to label it Shakespeare's life. You don't have to label it Shakespeare daily life. You don't have to label it something about theater. It can be any of those, any mix of any of those. But it does have to have a link that you use to more information. Now this link has to be something that is a reliable or a credible source, which we've talked about in class before, which means you can't use Wikipedia and you cannot use Ask Yahoo or Google Answers or things like that. It needs to be a reliable, credible source that offers you more information about whatever it is you're talking about in this caption. The same thing here. This needs to be a picture that gives more information about this caption, and you may choose whatever you like to write about related to any of those categories for the wildcard ones. But it does need to have either a link or a picture. It doesn't matter to me whether you have both of them with links or both of them with pictures or one of each like I've done here. You get to decide that information on your own. So that's part of this score guide right here. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about this in class, but you're only going to have about 15 minutes in class the next day that you see me, and you're going to have 15 minutes the following day after that. So some of this is going to have to be done at home. And I wanted to kind of zoom in on something important down at the bottom here that talks about how you should make these facts. So we've talked about these captions, and I said that they needed to be about 3 or 4 sentences. Now I've given you some silly information in here that's not really true because I don't want to give you the answers. So if you look at this, it says, this is too simplistic of a fact or a piece of information. Okay, so what's important on here to notice is that you can't really have 3 or 4 sentences if you're going to use just the fact about when Shakespeare was born. What would be better to do, instead of doing one simple fact that's not got enough information and another simple fact that's not got enough information either, is to go over here and do it a better way. Maybe you combine information about his birth and death into one caption, one cluster or one group of something. So you could talk about when he was born and when he died and how old he was and what that lifespan was, what the average lifespan was for that time. Now, of course, none of this information is correct. It's all silly so that I don't give you the answers. But what's important to know is that this is too simplistic, this is too simplistic. This over here is a much stronger caption that will get you, 1, all of your points, and 2, it will show me that you know and understand all of these things in a developed way, not just a simplistic fact, which should all also be in your own words for your 3 to 4 sentences. So I also want to talk about what I said today in class about planning. So if you look at this is on the board today. So on the board today, we offered the option to do partners or singles. Of course, if you were absent, you're going to have to do a single. The second step today was to decide on your image for your background. Now, I want to pause there for a second because your image for your background is not going to be a picture of your face like my example is. What's important to notice is that on your haiku and in that email, which I asked you to already download pictures from, you have a variety of pictures. I'm going to click on a couple of these. One picture here is a collage, and it's got a couple pictures. Some people said, Miss, that looks too busy. It's too chaotic in there. I don't need all of those things. And I said, that's fine. You can use this collage if you like, or you may look at some of these other pictures that are on here, which might include pictures of the time period. It might include a picture of the Globe Theater. It might include a picture of Shakespeare or something else. So you could use some of these to make your own collage. So if you're thinking about doing that, your collage could look like this one with 9 pieces of pictures on it that you might make on Pic Collage or some other app that you have. Or you might only choose to do a collage that has maybe 2 or 3 or 4 pictures on it. The important part of what you choose for your background is that you have something to show for all of your 3 categories. So you wouldn't want to pick just this picture of Shakespeare for your background, because when you look at your categories and you have a picture of Shakespeare, it's going to be very hard to put a bullet or a thing link on something for theater, because you're not going to have anything in there that represents theater. Of course, Shakespeare himself was a writer, but that doesn't mean that there's anything on that particular picture that represents theater. So it becomes a little bit confusing to your audience if you just have random dots or thing links or bullets in the corners. So you need to try to choose something that represents all of these things, which is why some people were making their own collages today with Pic Collage or other apps. And some people were just choosing to use my collage. That's entirely up to you. So once you have done that, let's go back to our list of things that we're doing today. So 1, partner or single, probably you're single. 2, get your image for your background, which means make your collage or figure out if you're going to use my collage or if you're going to get your own pictures or use my pictures to make another collage and what that's going to look like. The next part is your plan sheet facts. You need to plan what facts you're going to use on that sheet. I am not going to collect that particular sheet, this one right here. I am not going to collect this sheet from you. We're going to be working on this in class. What's important to do is that you do have your facts on here and written out. So 1, you can double check yourself and make sure you have all your categories. And 2, you have enough that go with the pictures for your collage before you actually start making your THINGLINK online, because it's very hard to delete and start over if you realize you don't have enough. Oh, I don't have a picture, or I don't have enough information that goes with all of these things. So I do want to talk about one last thing, is that some people have said, but Miss, some of these things could be used in multiple categories. For instance, if I was talking about the Globe Theater and I was talking about that it was the place where is known as Shakespeare's Theater, and that's the place where many of his plays were performed, etc. People could say, well, that's important because it was a major piece of information about theater at that time. People have also said, but Miss, it's known as Shakespeare's Theater. It could also go over here, and it could be yellow. So Yes, you're right. It could be used for both of those. What's important is that you decide which one to use it in. Some of them could be used in more than one category. The same thing about daily life. Women are not allowed on stage. Women not allowed on stage. Okay? What's important to know is that it could also go in theater at that time and become a red. It doesn't matter which category you want to use it in. Either is all right. What is important is that you don't double use it. You can't use women on stage in here and women on stage in here. Okay, pick which category you want to use that fact in if it could be used in multiple categories. So you need to plan all of those things out so that you don't have double usage being used and then you're missing your points. So this is what we're working on today in class, and make sure that you do these steps. Most people today in class only got 2, 3, or 4. They didn't actually start making the THINGLINK. They kind of went on the THINGLINK and signed up, but didn't really get much done. When you do go on to THINGLINK to sign up, you will use your school email that is given to you, and you don't need to get very far in this tonight because we're going to talk a little bit about some of the usage of it tomorrow in class. But again, we're only going to have about 15 minutes tomorrow and the next day, and then it will be due the following or that evening, Friday at 11:59 p.m. It needs to be turned in online, which I'll talk to you more about tomorrow in class. If you're absent, I'll send another video about where you turn that in. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me as always.